The U.S. should get its house in order. The government should radically cut its spending, abolish wholesale many programs. What Elon Musk tried to do with Doge and has failed at should be put on steroids. The U.S. government itself is bankrupt. Not only bankrupt, but becoming more bankrupt every year.
Hello and welcome back to Soar Financially, a channel where we discuss the macro to understand the micro. My name is Kai Hoffman. I'm the JR mining guy over on X, and of course, your host of this channel. And I'm looking forward to bringing back Doug Casey, the international man, the founder of Casey Research. We have lots to discuss, lots happening in the world, and a lot is shaping markets right now. And of course, gold is a big bellwether. What is happening? Just on Monday, we've seen gold jump up over 2%, silver jump up over 5.5%. So a lot of drivers in the market, and we'll have to dissect a little bit the macro environment that we are in right now. We're also entering the summer. Does Doug expect a slower period? Or is it time to relax, or should we be really careful with what is going on right now? And then maybe as a bonus, Doug is coming up with a new book soon called The Preparation. We'll talk about how do you prepare for the next step after doo-doo hits the fan. So apologies for that, but really looking forward to catching up with him. But before I switch over to my guest, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously, and it's a free way to support us. So thanks so much for doing that. Now, Doug, it's great to welcome you back on the program. Thank you so much for joining us again.
It's a pleasure to be here, Kai, although here for me is Buenos Aires, which is where I am at the moment.
Yeah, Germany for me, so it's great to connect. I love technology, by the way. Kind of mind-blowing. I was in Bosnia the other day using Starlink, and fun times. Like 2025, it's new technologies make things easier, although sometimes they can cause headaches, especially when cameras are not working, right?
Yeah.
No, fantastic. Doug, looking forward to this conversation. We got to set the scene, of course, a little bit and sort of dissect where we are at in the cycle, where are we at in the market? Like, what is a topic, or what are some of the topics that are keeping you busy right now? What are you following very closely?
Well, actually, if you follow the news, you almost feel like a pinball being bounced around. There are so many things happening. Certainly, this is true if you follow U.S. politics, because Trump is, he's almost like a mental patient, saying this, then saying the opposite, doing this, and then retracting what he's done. And I say that as somebody who has supported Trump, certainly relative to Kamala Harris. I say Kamala because in Spanish, which is where I am a lot of the year, Spanish-speaking countries, that means how bad. I mean, we dodged the bullet with her not having been installed, but it's not that Trump is going to be much better. He's just going to be different. Anyway, will he start World War III between Ukraine and Russia? Or maybe something will go really wrong with the Israelis, who have become the 51st state of the Union with their adventures in Gaza and maybe Iran next. So we've got a lot of things to look at. You've got the political situation, you got the military situation, you've got the financial situation. I'm very gloomy about where the economy is going. So where should we start?
Let's start with geopolitics, since you started there, Doug. Russia-Ukraine, big incident over the weekend. Ukraine attacked Russia, some of their Air Force bases. What do you make of that? It felt like it was a bit of a slap with a white glove towards Russia. It was like a final big provocation. Like, how do you put that into context, and what does it mean overall?
Well, the Ukrainians are losing the war badly. There's no way they could possibly win that war. Uh, it's the war. It's funny. When Trump was running for office, he said he could end the war between the Ukraine and Russia in a day or a week. And the fact is, he could. All the US has to stop doing is sending the Ukraine money and weapons, and they would stop fighting. That would be the end of the war. But dragging it out the way it is, especially prodding the bear, taking the war into Russia and destroying nuclear-capable bombers, you're almost asking for a response. You're asking for World War III. And what I understand from Russian-speaking people that monitor the media within Russia is that the average Russian is very, very angry and hot under the collar at the Ukrainian government having done this to him. So that Trump has got to end this war because the whole thing, starting with 2014 with the Maidan revolution, it's basically all been fomented and provoked by the U.S. So the U.S. has got to withdraw from this and let the Russians and the Ukrainians sort it out between themselves. It'll come to an end because the Ukrainians don't have any weapons or money without the U.S. Oh, unless these criminals that are running Western European governments, Starmer and Macron, and who's that newly elected chap in Germany,
Mertz.
they actually want a war with Russia. They're actually looking for World War III. These people are criminally insane.
Yeah, you just touched on that. Like the EU is really saber rattling, like Rutte, like head of NATO here as well, saying we'll be at war in 2 to 3 years. Friedrich Merz just saying like, well, we'll just take out the range of limitations out of our missiles, so we can shoot further into Russia. It's only 500 kilometers, but that's enough apparently to get towards Moscow. What do you make of that? It's like put some more context around that for us, because it seems like the West is, and that's what I'm picking up, massively provoking Russia here, and we're waiting for a response.
That's exactly right. The leaders of Western Europe are actually lunatics. What is to be gained from provoking Russia? Because at some point, whether it's his Politburo, I mean, uh, Putin has been, who's been made into the new Adolf Hitler, the worst human being alive. This is all a creation of Western propaganda. He's actually the best educated, the most reasonable, the most rational of all of the major world leaders today. And he's being provoked and painted into a corner where he's going to have to respond, whether pushed by his Politburo or pushed by the average Russian citizen. And then what's going to happen? Could it turn into a nuclear bomb going off in Berlin or maybe London or Paris? It's possible. Anything's possible today with these crazy people. And I don't mean that Putin's one of the crazy people.
No, apparently Russia has a lot of troops stationed on the border ready for a summer offensive, like to push into Ukraine and maybe sweep in and take over. Like, what is Russia's goal here? Like, trying to understand that perspective as well.
Well, their goal has been clearly enunciated and is actually very reasonable. As he pointed out, the Ukraine didn't exist before Lenin created it in 1922. I mean, it's a region. I mean, the word Ukraine even means borderland. And you have the Ukrainian people who are joined by the Ukrainian language, but it's never been a nation state. And all the Russians are looking for is a borderland where NATO is not right up against their borders. And of course, NATO is something that should have been abolished in 1991 when the Soviet Union fell. It's a military alliance against who? I mean, the Russians were flat on their back in 1991. So NATO should be abolished to start with. Uh, Look, the most dangerous entity on the planet right now is the US government with combat troops in dozens of countries around the world, provoking wars, backing them up, overthrowing governments. And meanwhile, personal freedom is vanishing all over the West. It's a very serious situation.
We'll talk about the personal freedoms here in a minute, because CBDCs and others like sort of fit into that narrative. But maybe just to put a bow around it, what does it take to establish peace in the Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine here?
Disinvolve the US, okay? I mean, you want to be, as Thomas Jefferson said 250 years ago, the idea is to be friendly with all, but allied with none. And that's exactly the attitude that the US government should take. So if Trump wants to try to make peace between the Ukraine and Russia, that's wonderful. But the amount of financial and military support going to the Ukraine should go to zero tomorrow morning to force them to the table. And it would be nice also, I'm not a Democrat. I don't really believe in elections for lots of reasons we could talk about. But one of the things that the Russians want is they want to see elections in the Ukraine because Zelensky, among the other depredations that he's done to the Ukrainian people, I mean, outlawing the Ukrainian church and uh, closing down newspapers that are against the government, many other things like that. Uh, he's not even the president of the Ukraine. They were supposed to have had elections like 6 or 8 months ago, whatever it was. And so he's really the unelected dictator of the country at this point. I mean, he's a degraded being, and he's still in office. So they've got to withdraw support from Zelensky, let the Ukrainians pick a new leader, and end this stupid war. There's nothing to be gained from it. And as far as what the Russians are looking for, most people are unaware of the fact that starting in 2014, when the government changed in Kiev, the Donbas region seceded from the Ukraine. And as soon as it seceded, Kiev attacked the Donbas, killing about 20,000 civilians. So this went on for years. And finally, since they were all Russians, basically, in the Donbas part of the Ukraine, Putin thought, we've got to put an end to this. And that's how the war started. It was provoked by the Ukraine. Yes, Putin started the war, but he was provoked into the war after years of this, and supported by the US at that point.
Let's jump further south. Let's talk Israel and the situation there in the Middle East in general. Like the 51st state, I thought that would be Canada, but sure, let's give 51st to Israel here. But
Well,
what do you make of that situation?
Yes, and you could probably also add Puerto Rico and Greenland and maybe Haiti as well. There's a trouble area that we can add to the U.S.
Yeah, take a number.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, of course, we're talking about serious conflicts here. Israel, Gaza situation, but also Iran, U.S.-Iran deal, nuclear deal is still being discussed. Deadline looming soon here as well. What do you make of the situation here in the Middle East, and how can that be resolved?
Once again, it wouldn't be a problem if the U.S. buttered out. Most people aren't aware of the fact that part of the $50 billion that the US government gives away to foreign governments every year out of US taxpayers' pockets. I mean, foreign aid is really just a welfare program taking money from poor people in rich countries and giving it to rich people in poor countries. So all that $50 billion of foreign aid ought to be abolished. But part of it is 4 billion plus given to Israel every year as a line item. And the same amount is given to Egypt as a line item, paying them, bribing them to be Israel's BFF in the Middle East. So to solve the problem, the US should withdraw all financial and military support from Israel, and they'll have to sort it out with their neighbors.
Like we had Simon Hunt
In
on the
fact, I don't even care who wins. Listen, I like the Israelis, I like the Arabs, no problem, or dislike them equally. But for the US or other countries to get involved, and it's basically the US, it's like getting involved in a family feud between the Hatfields and the McCoys, if you know my reference in the US, where generations ago, somebody killed somebody else, and the two families have been fighting ever since. And it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong or who started it, except it's been going on between the Jews and the Arabs, or if you wish, the Mohammedans, the Muslims, for many hundreds of years. This is not something that foreigners should get involved in.
We had Simon Hunt on the other day, and he said like the solution to all of that would be the U.S. just accepting a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. Is that something that would make sense?
It might make sense, but it's none of the US's business. Why is the US involved in this war between feuding tribes, if you would, or feuding religious systems, if you would, in the Middle East? It's absolutely none of our business. We have no interest in it, nothing to gain from it. So back away and let them solve it themselves. And the
Talking
same and the same goes with this potential dust up between Israel and Iran. None of our business. We can only make it worse.
Well, one could argue there's considerable interest on the oil side, of course, in the region, and the disarmament of Iran or not having them access to nuclear capabilities, especially weapon-grade nuclear material. Like, what do you make of those discussions of the U.S.-Iran nuclear deal right now? Because I know Russia is chiming in; they're offering security to a degree that Iran will only enrich uranium for domestic purposes, meaning like energy production and things like that. How do you rank that? Like, how does that fit into the whole regional
Well,
concept?
first of all, you can't stop the Iranians from enriching uranium and building nuclear reactors or nuclear weapons. You can't. They couldn't even stop North Korea from doing it, which is a backward, bankrupt country. They have nuclear weapons. The Iranians have is a country of 100 million people. It's not a pipsqueak like North Korea, so you can't do it. And not that I'm a supporter of any nation states or any governments, but you shouldn't do it. I mean, what is the U.S.? The world's policeman, the world's dictator. Uh, so leave them alone. Listen, any country that wants nuclear weapons at this point can build them and have them. The Israelis have had them since the 1960s, for God's sake. Uh, so leave these people alone, and they'll sort it out. And as far as oil is concerned, yeah, Iran's got a lot of oil, but speaking from the Americans' point of view, we don't import any oil from Iran, or for that matter, don't import any from the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia or any other these areas. So it's a problem with the locals, or maybe it's a problem for the Europeans, but not the U.S. to be sending their carriers and their B-2 bombers everywhere and intimidating people.
You said the U.S. was the policeman for the last 80 years. The world order is changing. And I think with Trump, it's being highlighted, maybe even accelerated to a degree, de-dollarization and many other reshufflings, BRICS rising. How do you see the new world order sort of forming? Like U.S. retreating because you can't afford to be the world policeman anyway. But like, what does it look like in the future? What kind
Mhm.
of multipolar world will? And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here, Doug. But what
Yeah.
kind of world are we steering towards?
Well, you have to acknowledge the fact that the US government itself is bankrupt. Not only bankrupt, but becoming more bankrupt every year. That national debt is never going to be repaid. And the dollar is a floating abstraction, which is gradually fading into the sunset. Well, what's coming up? Well, China, obviously. Uh, so that where the US is a declining empire. In fact, it's a multicultural uh, empire at this point that's expanding like like a giant star in the galaxy just before it's about to go supernova. Uh, the U.S. should get its house in order. The government should cut its spending, radically cut its spending, abolish wholesale many programs. What Elon Musk tried to do with Doge and has failed at should be put on steroids, the spending part. Uh, Taxes should be cut, regulations should be eliminated so that the US could prosper and boom. These problems can all be solved, but what the government is doing is counterproductive on absolutely every front.
One would argue we're way past the point of no return anyway. to be honest.
I,
Like, if you look at the
uh,
cycle theories and Neil Howe's fourth turning, I'm sure you've looked
yeah,
at it. It's like the world
yeah.
moves in cycles. So on a time scale, we're past the point of no return anyway. Um, can we dial back time, or dial back, no, not just time, but just, is it really possible to dial it back even with a lot of spending cuts?
Well, it seems to me that a country can come from nothing to something in an amazingly short period of time. Look at China. Starting with Deng Xiaoping in 1980, it was nothing but backward, ignorant, poor peasants. Now it can challenge the US technologically, scientifically, militarily, economically, every other way. This has all happened in the course of roughly 40 years. So if the US can hold itself together for that period of time, it could expand and grow and prosper to the same extent, percentage-wise, that China has coming from nothing. So yeah, the problem can be solved. But as likely as not, what's going to happen is while the Trump administration is trying to acquire new and expensive foreign possessions, like Greenland, for instance, um, just as likely is that we're going to have something resembling a civil war in the US. Uh, because there are groups in the US, the red people and the blue people, if you will, the liberals and the conservatives, they really hate each other. I'm shocked. They can't even talk to each other. It breaks up families because they're so at odds with each other philosophically. And the Civil War would not be like the unpleasantness of 1861 to 1865 in the US, which wasn't a civil war, it was a secession movement, which is different from a civil war, separate subject to talk about. But I think the US is becoming very unstable in a lot of ways. Not that China is an exemplar of being a stable country. They've got their own set of problems economically. These ghost cities, of which they built scores, are going to come home to roost. And the how much multiple hundreds of billions that the banks have lent to finance those cities, as well as their Belt and Road project, going to bankrupt all the banks. When Mrs. Wu goes there to get her yuan, if she can't get them, or if the yuan are worth nothing, you could have an explosion in China besides. That said, uh, China's on the way up and the US is on the way down. Doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way it is right now. Of course, I'm speaking to you right now from Argentina. And it's very interesting because Argentina has turned 180 degrees from a bankrupt and corrupt Peronist government, resembling that of Mussolini in Italy during World War II, to a government that actually wants to abolish itself down here. And they're radically cutting taxes and regulations. And the country is being transformed as I speak, right outside my door. It's wonderful. I'm going to be spending more time here in Argentina for that reason.
Yeah, interesting.
Well,
Like,
it's
so
also here in the Southern Hemisphere, in case these idiots in the North start exchanging nuclear weapons or launching bioweapons against themselves or cyber weapons, they'll do all of these things very likely in the future. Uh, I feel relatively safe here at the end of the road in
but
Argentina.
But Milei was voted out of desperation because the country like was already, down on its knees more or less. So the people decided, okay, let's give this a try more. But
Right.
the U.S. and even Europe, we're not hurting as much. Like economically, we're still in comparison doing fantastic, right?
You're right. You're
So
right.
we're not
I mean,
desperate enough yet.
yeah, the Peronist governments had actually run this place until the wheels fell off. And so going for Milei was, but the fact that it was getting so bad, it was especially the younger people that voted Milei in. It was not the old rich people who were benefiting, but the younger people who saw their future being inflated out from under them. Look, in Argentina, it was impossible to save money. And if you can't save money, you can't possibly get ahead. And they saw this. And Milei is a philosophical ANCAP. I am too. Uh, Basically, he sees that the government is a predator on society. It serves no useful purpose. So I'm very, very optimistic about the future of Argentina, although the deep state here is fighting him tooth and claw. But I think since the average Argentine at this point really supports Milei, I think it's going to have a happy ending.
I was going to say, like, what is the mood? Like, I haven't heard much lately. He's sort of been pushed out of the headlines here in Europe, where I am. Like, what is the mood right now? What is his approval rating and things like that? Like, if you were to put a finger on the pulse there.
Well, of course, the Argentines that I hang out with tend to be philosophically aligned with me. You hang out with birds of a feather from that point of view. Okay. So having said that, though, the average person, uh, the taxi driver and the waiters, people like that, that are not in my cadre, and I talk to them, uh, yes, they're all very happy about the changes that Milei has made. He's done as much as a president can do. And an Argentine president can is in a position to abolish lots of regulations, fire lots of government employees. They call them gnocchis down here. They're like fat pieces of dough that sit there and do nothing. So he's done lots of things like that. But in order to do more, you have to have the Congress to make laws. Now, there are going to be some elections coming up, and hopefully, in the coming elections, the remaining Peronists will be swept out of office, and Milei's party will put people in, and they can change the laws, which will be really big radical changes, not things that Milei can just do alone as the president. So,
Okay. We were running through a lot of topics here, Doug, and apologies for jumping around. Like, really insightful there in Argentina, and I wasn't planning on questioning you about Milei's policy here recently. But there's one more topic, one more war we have to talk about. It's not a kinetic war; it's a tariff war. It's between the U.S. and China. How do you see that playing out? Because it seems like the noise over the weekend has been that the conversations are being stalled. U.S. is accusing China of not holding their end of the bargain. China is accusing the U.S. of not holding their end of the bargain. It's a tit for tat, but it seems like it's going nowhere. Like, what are your thoughts, and like where is this going to end?
look, well, as I said, I supported very much Trump uh, as opposed to Kamala, who would have been an utter and complete disaster. But the problem with Trump is that he has absolutely no philosophical core. Uh, he doesn't believe anything from an ethical point of view as being right or wrong. People get confused because of the fact that he's a cultural conservative, like the culture not to be changed radically as it was being changed under DEI and all this type of thing. Wonderful, okay? But as far as his economic and financial policies, they're mostly crazy, slapping on tariffs willy-nilly at different rates with different countries for no reasons. He's creating chaos, and you can't afford to create chaos in a world as unstable as this one is, where all of the major governments in the world are bankrupt and head over heels in debt, as are consumers everywhere and corporations everywhere. And by throwing on these tariffs, which are taxes, and he's not reducing taxes other places, it's an additional tax. Uh, he could wind up uh, bankrupting large parts of this economy and foreign economies, creating chaos. And as unstable as the world is today, this is a very, very bad idea.
How do you think that China like will react to it? Like, will the tariff talks just fall apart, and we'll have April 2nd all over again?
Well, Trump has said that he wants to generate most of the US government's income from tariffs. But income taxes aren't being reduced. In fact, no other taxes are being reduced. So these tariffs he's talking about are just putting on another gigantic layer of taxes on the American people. Um, it's and another bureaucracy to enforce it, and then trying to import things into the U.S. where you have to go through shipments, containers, and figure out this is tariff for this much, and this is tariff for that much, and we don't know about this, and lawsuits, it goes to court. Uh, this cannot end well. If Trump wanted, well, if he knew how to create prosperity in the US, it would be by massively eliminating regulations, which he's trying to do, but massively eliminating taxes as well. Look, let me go further. At this point, I think the situation is serious enough. I think the US government should default on its national debt. It should default on it, quite frankly. It can't ever be repaid. So there's two things that can happen to the national debt. Either it can be inflated out of existence, which is the direction that they're going today, which is the ultimate disaster. For the US dollar to be destroyed through hyperinflation would be almost as bad as a nuclear war. It would be that catastrophic for many reasons. I think a better alternative is simply to default on it. All the real wealth in the country will still exist. It's just going to change ownership. And as far as I'm concerned, the people that have been financing the US government to do all the incredibly stupid and destructive things that it's done by buying its paper national debt will be punished, which I see as being a good thing.
It seems like the market is not pricing any of that in right now. It seems like
No,
and I'm stealing a phrase again that I picked up in financial media this morning, and I get probably crucified for just saying that out loud. But it seems like we're in a Goldilocks environment. Everybody's happy with the current 10-year yield. Everybody's happy with where the S&P is right now, it's about 6,000. As I said earlier, the MSCI world is at an all-time high. Everybody seems to be honky-dory. Everything's fine. Like, why is the market so? What do you call it? It's not ambivalent. I'm looking for a different word here, but why is the market ignoring what we've just discussed?
Well, one reason is because with the US government running $2 trillion a year deficits, which incidentally are going to go to 3, 4, 5 trillion in the next few years, most of that is being financed by the Federal Reserve, our central bank. The Federal Reserve buys the US government debt because nobody else wants to buy it really at current interest rates anyway. Uh, and they credit the US government's, I don't think most people even follow the way this works. The Federal Reserve then credits the US government's account at commercial banks like Citibank and Chase and so forth. Well, that increases the money supply. But when you shovel all that money out into society, people feel rich and they buy things. They buy stocks and they buy uh, this is a fool's paradise that we're living in. They're trying to solve the problem the way the Germans did in the 1920s, or the Zimbabweans did uh, uh, when they were printing $100 trillion bills. So this is going to end. This is going to end very, very badly. But that's why the stock market's going up, because at least the stock market represents real wealth. It's in bubble territory. I have no interest in owning the average stock and less than zero interest in owning bonds. They're a triple threat to your capital. You've got the inflation risk. Inflation is going up. Unless we have a catastrophic deflation, which would also be bad for bonds. You got the currency risk. You've got the default risk. You've got the interest rate risk. Bonds are a massive threat to your capital. And since the bond market is much bigger than the stock market, something bad happens to the bonds, that's bad. And the real estate market floats on a sea of debt. The average mortgage, 30-year mortgage now is about 7%. So of course, you can't buy or sell a house unless you can borrow money. That's also crazy. It's not the way it used to be. Interest rates go up, the real estate market could crash. So yeah, I think the US economy is, everybody might feel good and the sun's shining and the McDonald's is still open, but I think it's an accident waiting to happen. That's why I've been buying gold for many years, I've got to point out.
Yeah, a
Many
lot of people have
years.
been going goals. Like it's been, what is it, 34 minutes, and we just now talk about gold, but we had to set the scene here real quick, or real
Right.
quick, but we had to set the scene. Like, tell us, like, what is the gold price telling you now, Doug? Like, if you were to talk a $3,400 gold an ounce, what is it telling you?
It's telling me that more and more people, especially at this point, oddly enough, other governments like the Chinese government and other governments, central banks, foreign central banks, are recognizing that gold is the only financial asset that's not simultaneously somebody else's liability. Okay. And right now at 33, 3,400, gold is reasonably priced. I mean, I've been buying it for decades. I've been buying it since I was a kid out of college. Never sold an ounce. So I've got a lot of gold actually. And it's been pretty good. I've used it as a savings vehicle, sometimes as a speculative vehicle. But the thing is that right now, at current prices, gold is reasonably priced relative to meals in restaurants or clothes or houses. It's not a bargain anymore. So why do you own it? You own it for safety and security because it's not going to dry up and blow away like a government bond or like a stock market. And actually, there is, I think, huge speculative upside still left in gold. Why do I say that? Because I think at some point soon, relatively soon, governments are going to be forced to go back to using gold because nobody wants to accept the other guy's phony fiat money. Uh, so if they go back to using gold to make the dollar worth an amount of gold that the US government has, or we hope they have anyway, because we don't know how much gold the US government actually owns. It hasn't been audited for many, many decades. You're probably looking at gold at $30,000 or $40,000 an ounce, which sounds absolutely incredible. But you can build a case that that could happen because the world is going to have to go back to gold.
Well, people have been saying $3,000 and been laughed out of the room before as well.
Yeah,
So we've
yeah. Well, it's at a new level.
uh,
It's it's at a reasonable equanimous level relative to everything else right now, as I said before. But I think it could go higher if they reinstitutionalize gold as being money from day to day, the way it was before 1933.
Doug, we're painting a pretty grim picture here, of course. And how does one prepare? The preparation is the title of your book, and you're
Yeah.
addressing, of course, young men and what young men should do. But like, what should we do? How do we prepare for the next, I don't know, the next level here in this game of
Well,
life?
yeah. Well, there's absolutely nothing that you and I or anybody listening to this can do on a macro level. Well, you can't influence the government or which way the world's going. So forget about that. Don't clutter your mind up with that. What you can do is look out for number one, take care of yourself and your family and your friends. And this book that Matt Smith and I are working on, we're almost finished with it. It'll be out in 3 months. It's called The Preparation. It's what a young man in particular should do instead of going to college. Because as far as I'm concerned, college is not just a waste of time, it's an active misallocation of a huge amount of money and for the best years of your life to sit in a class to be yapped at by Marxist college professors. And most of them are. They're Marxists, they're socialists, they're leftists. I mean, academia has been totally captured by these people. So why anybody would pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to sit at a desk and hear the same tired old lecture from people that don't know anything about the real world, it's mystifying. So what we're recommending is a course of academic study, which I think would be far superior to any college. I could go into why and how on that. But in addition to that, we divide the 4 years of college into 16 quarters. And in each quarter, it's not just a question of learning academic things, but going out and doing things, practical doing things. Like Matt's son is proceeding along this, and he loves it. Like one quarter is learning how to operate machinery of all types, bulldozers, backhoes, graders, whatever. You learn how to do that. Now you can immediately earn pretty big money, which somebody that gets out of Harvard, somebody gives them a job with, with a hedge fund or something like that. You do that. Next thing is, meanwhile, you're learning how to scuba dive, okay? Spend a quarter in Thailand taking Muay Thai and other martial arts because any young man should be a competent fighter, a competent martial artist instead of a weak namby-pamby sitting in his mother's basement watching videos where he pretends. So it's this program over 4 years. By the time a young man is through with it, with travel around the world to do these various things, should actually be a Renaissance man. Mens sana in corpore sano, sound mind and a sound body, fully competent and skilled, and covering lots of ethical ground as well, something which is totally not covered in college, so that by the time you finish the 4 year preparation that we outline exactly how and where and when and everything, you would be the type of person that any organization would kill to get to work for. But at the end of the preparation, the student has no desire to work for anybody else because part of it is learning to be an entrepreneur where you work for yourself. Who wants to be an employee of a company where you're sitting in a cubicle that you're given and earning a salary, and maybe the boss will give you a bonus? This is bullshit. So that this is the point of the 4 year preparation. Anyway, that book will be out in a few months, and maybe we can talk again then when I have a copy to show you and people can buy it and put the theory into practice with their kids before they're totally corrupted by college.
No, fantastic. We'll definitely enjoy that. Doug, we'll definitely have to do it. Really appreciate your time. It's really insightful catching up. Time just flew by. We've been chatting for 42 minutes. Absolutely is just like it just went by. Really appreciate it. Doug, it was great to see you. And of course, we'll touch base when the book comes out. You said in about 3 months?
I'd say so. It'll be out by then.
Okay. In the meantime, where can we find more of your work? I know you have a really active YouTube channel as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, uh, two things. Well, three things, really. Number one, at internationalman.com, which is a blog, uh, everybody can sign up for it. It's free. Great articles, all free. Internationalman.com. That's one. Number two is on YouTube. Matt and I have a channel called Doug Casey's Take on YouTube. Uh, that's also good. And the third thing I'd mention, most of my nonfiction books, they're all out of print, but I have three novels, three of a coming group of seven called Speculator, Drug Lord, and Assassin. These are the first three, reforming the unjustly besmirched reputations of on highly politically incorrect occupations. The next one's going to be terrorist, where our hero, Charles Knight, is accused of being a terrorist. I have a lot of thoughts and theories on terrorism as a method of warfare. So that should be out within 6 months or something like that, too. So go to the novels. They're on Amazon. They're really quite good.
Fantastic. Doug, you keep yourself quite busy down there. So I appreciate you taking the time for us. Thanks so much for coming on. Thank you so much. And
Yes.
everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in here to Soar Financially. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with Doug Casey. Covered a lot of ground, lots of geopolitical conversation, of course. Lots happening on the geopolitical side, of course. That is influencing markets, that's influencing the gold price, and it's just shaping everything that we do on a daily basis. Thank you so much for tuning in. Leave your comments down below. We do want to hear from you. How are you preparing for the next stage or next level in life? I'd be really curious to hear more. And leave a subscribe or hit that subscribe button as well. It's a free way to support us, and we tremendously appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll be back with lots more here on Soar Financially.